प्रपन्न पारिजाताय तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। In this 46th class, we shall carry on with this Sthita Prajna Lakshanas, studying more of it. In the last class, we took those two very well-known shlokas, which are a wonderful description of how a seeker, or for that matter any person, can degenerate, how a lady or man can get more and more disintegrated. And as we saw, it all begins with thinking. Think of ego and egoistic gratifications, especially in the present context, in the matter of sense pleasures. Vishaya dhyana. People do not realize that even as they think more and more of various personal enjoyments, what secretly happens is their ego, their body identification gets stronger. The sense objects come and go, and their enjoyments also come and go. But what is left behind is a stronger ego, a self that is more hungry, a self that is more confused, a little self which we call the ego that is more wrong in its priorities. The priorities of the seeker really get topsy-turvy as he or she gets more involved in pursuit of comfort, pleasure, and the host of things. Therefore, at the end of those two shlokas, 60 to 63, Sri Krishna said, Buddhinashat pranashyati. That is, one is destroyed. That means one is so badly damaged, one's character, one's integrity, one's sensible personality is so badly damaged that it takes a long time and some powerful satsang, some really good exposure to positive vibrations to bring this person back on the track. Once we asked somebody in our ashram to recite these two shlokas by memory, and he began very well. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu pajayate. He continued very well. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. One by one, the steps of fall. Kamat krodho vijayate. Krodhat bhavati sammohaha. Sammohat smriti vibramaha. And some of us teachers were very happy. Good, this student is chanting very well. Then Smriti Bhramshat Buddhi Nashaha, up to there, the seventh step also. Then I don't know what happened to that student. He said, rather than saying Buddhi Nashat Pranashyati, which is the destruction, he said, tasya prajna pratishtita. Because there are several shlokas in this portion which talk about someone who has reached the height of inner integration. In fact, the integration, chitta shuddhi, changes to a transcendental realization, a leap into the infinite. So, elsewhere it is tasya prajna pratishtita. Here it should have been buddhi nashat pranashyati. You can imagine how the whole class had a hearty laughter, and that young man, oh, two shlokas, that means 8 quarters, and 7 quarters he chanted correctly. Then, instead of saying, such a seeker is destroyed, he said, such a seeker has excellent spiritual wisdom. So you see in Bhagavad Gita too, we have very humorous episodes coming here and there, sometimes arising from the shlokas themselves or in classes when the shlokas are handled, students or some participants mispronounce or mistake some word for something else, like in the ninth chapter, you have the word bharta, which means Lord is the supporter of everything. But somebody mistook it to be the North Indian delicacy, bharta, baingan ka bharta. So like that, there are pieces of humor in the Gita. Now, in this class, we see 64, where Lord Krishna gives the picture in contrast. If you and I every day do the opposite. Rather than thinking about Vishaya, sense objects, we think about Bhagavat, that is Bhagavan or Bhagavati, Bhagavad Dhyanam, or in the language of Jnana Marga, we again and again remind ourselves, my body may be tired, but I am awareness. My mind may have some silly desires at this moment, but I am not my mind. I am the Sakshi Chaitanya. I am the witnessing consciousness. Even as our mind suggests, eat this, drink that, go here, enjoy, and so on, it's like a noise around the witnessing consciousness. And when there is a certain viveka in us, something wonderful happens. All along we used to fall for this noise, but now that there is some viveka, the witnessing consciousness does not get trapped in this egoism. It or you or say in whatever language, something happens and one doesn't get trapped. There is lust, there is greed, there is jealousy, there are all the inner enemies, and around you there is so much of disturbance. But you remain quiet and you watch them all. You do not get caught. I believe many years ago there was a movie. I have not seen it. English movie. Kill them all and come back alone. That was the title of the movie. And a Vedanta guru referred to it many years ago. He said to his students, look, there is this movie, kill them all and come back alone. Likewise, in your sadhana, don't kill anybody, but conquer them all these temptations, and stay in the self. That is what is required. And it's possible for every one of us. We just need to learn that little trick. And satsangas are meant to teach us that very trick. How to not get caught in a passing thought, which may be proposing to us to go enjoy something. We respect the genuine biological needs of our body and of our mind. Not only do we need food and shelter and clothes and so on. But we do need certain conducive atmosphere. We wish to receive love. We wish to give love. Not love in some raw sense, but that sense of goodwill, sense of respect, sense of caring. We wish to care for others and we want people to show some care. Therefore, you find even Mahatmas, even great souls, they leave places where they were persecuted or they were not respected. They go and spend time with people who understand their message. So they can share their wisdom, they teach, they learn from the students. There's an exchange. As we reach a certain higher point, it is no more, it's not a one way traffic. I was long back touched by the expression win win, or more than that, in that context, Stephen Covey mentioned that from dependence we go to independence, and then he said a higher level of corporate excellence or that applies anywhere is interdependence. For me, some 30 years ago, to become independent was everything. And I said, what is this interdependence he is talking about? Then it made sense. Yes, in a sense, you don't need anybody. But for more effective work, for living life more fully, you should not, in the name of I am now independent, I don't depend for my happiness, I don't depend on any object, any person, I'm going to live in a shell, in a cave. No. Then what's the fun? What's the joy of living? Go to interdependence. There's nothing negative about interdependence. From dependence, you rise to independence, shabash. Then go further. It is interdependence, and that is all about learning from each other, receiving from each other, giving and taking. And the enlightened person does not have some kind of false ego where he says, I don't want to take anything from anybody, I only want to give. Some spiritual seekers also have that egoism, some kind of abhimana. They only want to give. They feed their guests heavily, and when it comes to their turn, they take so less. Then the guests feel very embarrassed. It seems that the host is not taking good care of himself or herself. So, everybody should examine, do we have some abhimana, false pride, and then correct themselves. So, interdependence, where there is give and take. Therefore, I said even Mahatmas learn, maybe in some functional matters, maybe the highest truth they know, but life is all time learning, learning, and learning in countless other fields and topics. Adi Shankara connects us from those two verses which described how we fall to the present verse 64, which talks about how we may rise, how staying apart, how carefully navigating through things that provoke us and through things that tempt us without getting stuck with any of them, we may achieve great inner peace where it is natural to us. Adi Shankara says, Sarva anarthasya moolam uktam vishaya abhidhyanam. Vishaya dhyanam, vishaya abhidhyanam. Get into it and think on those sense objects more and more. That is abhidhyanam. So that was mentioned, how contemplation about sense pleasures more than anything else strengthens our Jiva bhava. We need to weaken our sense of being this body and mind. We need to realize our being, the pure awareness. and sense attractions and attachments come in the way of that kind of mukti marga. So, ata idanim moksha karanam idam uchyate. You want to save yourself from that several steps of fall, that several stages of continued disintegration. Come on, here is the way. That is what Adi Shankara says, and 64 goes Ragadvesha viyuktaistu vishayan indriyaischaran Atma vasyair vidhe atma prasadam. The golden word here is prasada. Prasada here means prasannata, serenity. As I quote often, Eknath Ishwaran, who was previously a professor of English in India, and towards the last 30 or 40 years of his life, he lived in Northern California and built that institution, Blue Mountain Center for Meditation. And he wrote beautiful books on not only Vedanta works, but some selected works of Christianity, Sufi, Islam, Buddhism, and so on. And his commentary on Bhagavad Gita is a very different one compared with many others which go into technicalities. His commentary on Bhagavad Gita is titled Bhagavad Gita for Daily Living, not talking, not just collecting concepts, how we may live Bhagavad Gita in daily life. And that came out in 3 volumes. I guess now also it is sold in 3 volumes, each volume covering 6 chapters. So the volume 1 covering the first 6 chapters is titled one notch below. The general title is Bhagavad Gita for Daily Living, but all the 3 volumes have their own title. And can you believe the title for the first volume of the first 6 chapters of Gita that he gave was and is Ending of Sorrow. Ending of Sorrow. And that is exactly what the 64 is all about. And in fact, that is more explicitly mentioned in the next shloka, Dukkhasya Hanihi. This prasada is no other than Dukkhasya Hanihi. All of us have some sorrow, some discontent, some dissatisfaction, some unrest. Those of us, even those of us who are keeping good health, finance is all right, family is good, we have a good number of friends who understand us, 100 good things. In a sense, we can't ask God for more. Yet, there is some unrest. That unrest goes away when this inner engineering takes place. And what is this inner engineering? That is what 64 said. All that we need to do is, in life, time and again, vishaya, varieties of sense objects on a grosser level and on a subtler level, opportunities for us to show off, for us to rub on somebody's, rub it into somebody, how I am greater than him, to tell somebody, you are wrong, I am right. So somehow we get opportunities to live in the domain of our likes and dislikes. Vishayan charan, you have to move between sense objects, there is no choice, but ragadvesha viyuktaihi indriyaihi. Train your senses. Indriya, the 5 jnanendriyas, the 5 karmendriyas, maybe for Let's say somebody is 68 years old. For 68 years, she has been talkative. She has been um, always saying more than what is appropriate, or saying things which should not be said. Now, train that karmendriya called speech. Just a moment. Vishayas are not in our hands, they come into our life. But whether we should get caught in them or keeping a little distance, respectful distance, we move on. What makes us get caught? Either it is the urge to possess it, like this lady, some 68-year-old lady, without any particular woman in mind. I gave the example, is talkative. So when there is a conversation going on, she gets the urge. Let me say this, let me mention that. I know that person, I know this matter. No, don't be so attached to just talking on and on. And some other time, it could be dvesha, raga and dvesha. One wants to talk, one wants to express some dislike. In that example, if one can train one's senses, training, just like we can train ourselves in so many things. Every one of you learned bicycle, and was it not a process where initially you thought you could not go even 10 feet? Later on, bicycle riding becomes second instinct, becomes something which you can do while watching all around, singing a song. So you just ride the bicycle so easily. So is it possible for us to train ourselves to move along sense objects rather, without raga and dvesha? Raga dvesha viyuktaistu vishayan indriyescharan. As simple as that. Just train ourselves in all our sense organs or their activities not to get caught. Therefore, isn't it said, all of you know, how in spirituality, above everything, it is being alert, being vigilant. If we are not vigilant, then what is called pramada happens. Pramada means error. Pramada means behaving inadvertently, behaving carelessly. We know very well something should not be said, and it slips from our lips. And somewhere else we know this is the time to say it, and we say, let me say it tomorrow. Why should I say now? So both commission and omission. We didn't say what had to be said, that is omission, and we said something which should not have been said. Why does it happen? Lack of alertness. Therefore, if any of us could be alert, then that is like the theorem, and everything else is like corollary. So here we have Sri Krishna giving us a golden tip. Just be watchful. Don't go by old habits. Change your ways in the light of the new wisdom that you have gained. Ragadvesha viyuktaihi, that's the adjective to indriyaihi. So your senses should be trained to be free from the pulls and pushes which it normally has. Right? Then what happens? The senses to that extent are under your control. Atma vashyaihi. They are in your control. Earlier they were vishaya vasha. Senses were under the control of those sense objects. Now they are Atma Vasha or Atma Vashya. Same. Vidheya Atma. Indriyas are under your control, and your mind. The word Atma can mean the mind here. the mind also is cooperative. Maybe for some of us it's a little long journey, but it's worth it. Maybe we find we Hindus who believe in many lives are prone to say, not in this life. This life I have heard these lectures, that itself is a blessing that I should count. I will start living it in next life. Rama Rama, don't postpone like that. Start now itself. Identify your erroneous zones. You have a weakness for tongue, either in good food or in talking. You have a weakness for money. You have a weakness for wanting praise from people. Or do you go about with a vendetta against people who make some negative remarks about you? If that is the case, work on it. Let people criticize. Olden days, I used to grind my teeth and I used to think how to teach that man a lesson who spoke like that about me. Now, what you need to do is, okay, somebody said something negative. I'm not going to react as before. First thing I find out, is what he said true? If it is true, let me correct myself. He has pointed out some fault of mine. If what he has talked about me is false, he is mistaken, then let me hold it. Let me hold it in my consciousness. I know he has spoken like this. That is his opinion about me. But let me avoid any personal hatred, revenge, vendetta, and so on. So, this is how we can train ourselves, and the benefits are immense. What is the great benefit? Prasadam adhigacchati. We attain serenity. We who were disturbed before, every day we would get sad in some way or the other. By the end of the day, we say, I don't know, things are not going okay for me, and so on. We don't realize 50%, if not more, we are ourselves responsible for that feeling that comes up in the evening, because we didn't deal with situations and scenarios in a rather wise way. So, as simple as that, let's see how Sri Shankaracharya helps us go to greater depths of this shloka. Ragadvesha viyuktaihi. First of all, there are two items here. Ragascha dveshascha ragadveshau. That's what Acharya Shankara writes in his Bhāshya. Tat purassaraha hi indriyanam pravrittihi swabhaviki. The usual swabhaviki is in the sense of the usual. The usual way for indriyas to operate is go by likes and dislikes. Purassara. How nice this word purassara is. Puraha means front. Sarati is to go. First the likes and dislikes operate, and then the indriyas simply follow them. So, tat purassaraha, that is ragadvesha purassaraha. Oh, so that's not plural. Tat purassara, no visarga, because the word tat purassara is an adjective to pravritti. Tat purassara pravrittihi indriyanam swabhaviki. The usual behavior, pravritti, of indriyas is ragadvesha purassara, not purassaraha. Tatra yo mumukshur bhavati. Whoever among us is very keen on spiritual growth, is keen on liberation, the inner freedom, what does she do? Tabhyahi viyuktaihi shrotradibihi indriyaihi. As I said, training our senses and our karmendriyas to be not going by the likes and dislikes. The old habitual urge may come up, but we examine it. And like we advise a little child, dear child, don't eat that food being sold on the roadside. It can cause you ill health. You will start vomiting by evening. Don't buy. Don't buy anything anywhere. Don't eat anything that some stranger gives you. We train the child, and the child slowly makes it a habit. Mama has said, Papa has said, I should not eat anything given to me by a stranger. So the child knows how to deal with all kinds of situations. So Sri Shankara writes, vishayan avarjaniyan charan. So we need to engage or involve in only such activities which are not varjaniya. Varjaniya means nishiddha. Varjaniya is a modest word. Nishiddha is a strong word. What should be avoided? What should not be taken up? What is prohibited? And what is not prohibited, we should engage. We should take up. Avarjaniya means what is acceptable. Avarjaniyan charan upalabhamanaha atma vashyaihi. Atmano vashyani means vashibhutani. Sometimes a synonym, a little explanation can go a long way for you and me to understand Bhagavad Gita better. Atma vashyani vashibhutani indriyani, then vidheyatma. I said Atma here means manaha. Adi Shankara writes antakaranam. Ichchataha videyaha atma antakaranam. The word Atma refers to oneself. And our existence, one's own existence, after all, is at different levels. So the Atma can sometimes mean our physical level of existence, the body. Some other time Atma can mean Antakarana. Some other time it can mean even Buddhi. And then the highest meaning, what is the Atma ultimately? That is Satchidananda Brahma. That is the pure self. So the word Atma has a range of meanings. Here it is Antakarana. So Vidheyatma means one who has kept one's Antakarana in control. Such a person gets Prasadam. Prasadaha is Prasannata. The same person who was agitated a while ago feels, how nice. I have no complaints now. So wonderful. I feel so light. My chest is now free of any pressure, agitation, and so on. One more word Adi Shankara gives, swastham. Swastha. When you are in yourself, when you are anchored in your own pure being, that is, you are swastha. Interestingly, as all of you know, swastha also means fit and healthy. And swasthya is the name used in a lot of Indian languages for arogya. How nice. The seers of the past had given this word. When you are by yourself, you are truly yourself, then you are fit, you are healthy. When you have allowed alien things like the coronavirus, or now some black fungus has raised its ugly head, and somebody already cautioned everyone not to use the same mask successive days. I believe if you use the mask, especially in warm countries like India, there is sweat, and that mask being used again next day will lead to that sweat inviting fungus. And one of the deadly kinds of the fungi is this, what they call black fungus, with some other biological name for it. So that's alien. Likewise, leave alone or leave aside bacteria or viruses, fungi or anything. Even kama, krodha, etc. don't belong to us. We are purna. We are complete. We are infinity. Why do we have to beg for happiness from somebody's praise and some sense object and so on. Let us be ourselves. That is swasthyam. So, being in our true nature, provided you understand your true nature properly. Swasthyam, how nicely it has been explained. Um, Prasada has been explained by Sri Shankaracharya as a matter of regaining our own natural poise. It's not borrowed from anywhere else. Swastasya bhavaha swasthyam. And as I said, this prasada is now shown as no other than dukkasya hani. All kinds of sorrow come to an end. So the first volume of Ishwaran's commentary on Bhagavad Gita is titled Ending of Sorrow, and that is based on this dukkasya hanihi or dukkhanam hanihi. So Adi Shankara says, Prasade sati kim syat? So what? One is serene, one is calm. What does it mean? Well, don't you want to be free of all agitations and sorrow? You are asking, of what use is this prasada? Like people might ask some of you, right? When you go to satsangs, when you attend this YouTube lecture on Bhagavad Gita, oh, you have been doing this for so many years. What under the sun are you going to get out of it? Now stop this. You have heard enough. And so on. There are always some people who will advise you like that. You must tell them, all our life we are interested in one thing, to drive away sorrow and to be happy. These satsangs do that for me. These satsangs help me position myself in such a way that sorrow ends and prasad, happiness, takes its place. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasyopajáyate prasanna chetaso hyashu buddhi paryavatishtate. When there is prasad, the seventh case here, Saptami Vibhakti, means prasade sati. When there is prasad, when there is this serenity, when our mind does not have guilt or shame, or for that matter, undue pride, the mind has a childlike simplicity. The mind is not dull, it's not asleep. The mind is very aware what has happened. Somebody has criticized, and some other place someone has praised us. So one is aware, but in spite of receiving praise or criticism, the mind is serene. Sarva dukkhanam hanirasyopajayate. Asya sadhakasya or asyaha sadhikayaha sarva dukkhanam hanihi. Ending of all sorrow. How beautiful. Isn't it what we want all through our life? No matter in what field of activity we are, some of us may be entrepreneurs, business people, techie people, some of us may be professors, some of us may be homemakers. Wide is the range of our occupations, our professions, our way of living. But in all of them, every one of us desires happiness, ending of sorrow, and that is possible through this moving through the sense objects carefully without falling a prey to likes and dislikes. Raga, Dvesha are the enemies. Examine yourself. Examine, sample as they say, even 4 hours in a day, and just see whether you went by likes and dislikes. Even in time management, somebody has some free time, and rather than doing some pending work, he picks up newspaper because he's attached to reading newspaper, or turns the TV on. These days, rather than doing an important piece of work which may take just 10 minutes, one says, Let me see, some WhatsApp messages have come. Hey, here goes an interesting video. And the person who has sent it is saying, must watch, must see. You listen to them and blame them. It's not their saying must watch. You have such raga, attachment to watching this or that video, keeping important work pending. So even if you sample nowadays for corona test, just a little sample from the throat, a sample from inside the nose, and they tell you you are COVID positive or COVID negative. Likewise, friends, you can find out whether you are in spirituality uh, in good shape or in bad shape. And if you are in bad shape, better take measures to set yourself right. So, prasade sarva dukkhanam. It could be adhyatmika, adibhautika, adidaivika, and so on. Hanihi means vishayanasha. Adi Shankara writes, all sorrow comes to end, and for such a person whose mind is peaceful, swastha anta karanasya buddhihi paryavatishtate. His intellect also settles down very nicely, so that the spiritual understanding becomes more and more stable. Akashameva pari samanthat avatishtate. Just as Akasha is so spacious, it is the one that gives space to anything. Samantat means in all directions. So as we become conquerors of our own mind inside us, no matter where we are, no matter which place, which climate, which company, around whom, in all places we get prasada. And Bhashyakara says, Atma Swarupena eva nischali bhavati. Just as the pure self is steady, we become steady. Evam prasanna chetasaha avastita buddhe kritakrityata. A sense of great fulfillment comes about, and that is all because we don't do Shastra Viruddha things. Shastra Aviruddheshu Avarjaniyeshu Yuktaha Samachare Ityartha. Therefore, whether we like it or not, we better listen to the advice of these noble scriptures. Not the packaging of varieties of religious customs. There we have choice. But the core principles, Satya, Hinsa, Brahmacharya, Shaucham, Amanitvam, and so on, there are these four principles. If we play with them, we are playing with fire. We will get burnt. In this way, these are of great help to us in our sadhana, in our lifting ourselves by ourselves. This Harihi Om. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.